this isn't on your binder, we still need to know how to do all of these types of problems. So starting with number 1, it's pretty self-explanatory right in the directions. So it says translation, which means we're going to slide that this triangle, and then it tells you what to do. There's not even a vector. It tells you 2 right and 3 up. Okay, so but what students forget though is that when I'm giving points out at this, to be technically correct, you've got to label all of your points and you've got to label all of the new points. So the first thing that we're going to do is not measure the vector, it's label the points because there is no vector, okay? This right here basically is telling you what your vector would say if it was drawn, okay? So I'm going to label my points. Let's label them. Do you want to do A, B, C, or should we do something more fun?
Z, Y, X.
How about X,
E.
Y, Z?
Oh.
Oh my gosh, we're so creative. Okay, so X, Y, Z. And it tells you move these guys 2 right and 3 up. So starting with X, then, we want to take X and we want to move it 2 to the right and 3 up. 1, 2, 3. And we want to make sure we relabel that X prime. Do you think you move Y in a different way?
Yeah.
Or the same?
Same.
Same. Okay, Y is going to move 2 to the right, 1, 2, and 3 up. And what do you label it? Y prime. And same with Z. 2 to the right, and 1, 2, 3 up. And there's Z prime. And then you reconnect them. And then you're done. This one is the easiest one because it literally tells you what to do. It tells you 2 right and 3 up. You don't even have to figure it out. The thing that students forget is the labels on there. And when you're being scored on this, you got to have the labels so you know which is the original and which is the image, okay? Are there questions on the first one? Easy peasy, yes? All right, let's move to the second one. So the second one is really the same type of question, but you have an extra step, okay? Translate the figure according to vector AB, okay? So this time, instead of just telling you what to do, you have to look at the vector. So you have this extra step of giving the direction of the vector. Well, here's the vector. Vector is arrow. What does this vector tell us to do? What is the direction of the vector? Knock. Go to the right. How far? 1, 2, 3, 4. Right 4. Now, do we have to go up or down at all with this vector or not? No. Sometimes we will. If the vector is like at an angle, we'll have to maybe go right 4 and up 2 or whatever that happens to be. In this case, we literally move it right 4. Okay, what is the next step, do you think? What? Starts with a L and ends with a, go. Label. Yes, label. Let's go with my favorite, M-A-T-H. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's the best label ever. And where do I move point M?
So 4 to the left.
4 to the left. 4 to the right. Right 4, okay? So moving point M, right 4, moves it right onto the y-axis. Is that okay, you think?
Yes.
Yes. And we want to relabel it, M prime. In fact, sometimes your vector or your movement will totally overlap the original. Because what if the vector was only moving it 1 right? And it's okay to overlap as well. Okay? So A is going to move 4 to the right and also land right on the y-axis. T is going to move 4 to the right starting here, landing right here, T prime. And then finally H is going to move 4 to the right and land right here. Okay? Some students will forget. They will black out for a second and they'll give me that as their answer. What's the last step? Reconnect it. The whole idea is to get a copy of what you started with. And there you go. And it has to look like, ooh, I just slid this figure over. Boom. Questions about that one? Wonderful. All right. How is number 3 different? How is it different, Lily? You have to make the original first, okay? So as we go through this, they keep adding a step to it. So our first step is to create the original. Hopefully everyone remembers how to graph. If you don't, the first coordinate, -3, it tells you to go left or right, okay? So -3 is what? Left or right? Left 3. What's -4 then? Down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we want to make sure we label it. There's U. M says go -1, -1. So we will go left 1 and down 1 and label it M. And L, -2, -5, left 2, down 5. Oh, sorry, label that L. Okay. Why did I not put the prime signs on this?
Because it's the original.
It's the original. It kind of looks like a blue Dorito on mine. Okay, it should look like a thin little Dorito chip. And then what do? What do, Moo? Move it up. Yep. Up here, before anything, it tells you the translation. It didn't draw a vector, but our vector is telling us 5 units up. So we're going to move every point 5 units up now that we've drawn it. And you can start anywhere. I'm going to start with U again, and I'm going to move it 5 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can I label it Z now? No, I must label it U prime. And move it 5 units up. And same with L, moving it 5 units up. And some of you can see that once you get a few of the points in, you don't actually have to count them. Like I can see that U and L are only 1 apart here, and so they got to be 1 apart here. If they're not, you will easily tell if you mess something up on this because your image, your primes, will not look identical to the original. So on this guy, you should have 2 little Doritos, 1 blue one and 1 green one in this case. If one starts looking like a big fat Dorito, you messed it up, okay? Good. So Mrs. Richards accidentally skipped number 4 when I was numbering, as you can see. We go to 5, okay? So I apologize for that, my apologies. Write a rule now, okay? The rule is to tell me the translation, and eventually we'll do the same for reflection and rotation. But right now we're only talking about translation. So when it says write a rule, you have to look at the 2 figures and tell me what's happening. Your first thing is identify which one is the original on here. Is the original your top triangle or your bottom triangle, and how do you know? What is the original one, top or bottom? Knock.
I think the bottom because it is.
You are right. It is the bottom because this one doesn't have the prime signs on it. So this is where you start, right here with this triangle is your starting triangle. It's so important to know that because if you don't know which one's the start and the end, then your directions are going to be off. So our rule is translation. Okay, and then we tell what it is doing. And the way you figure it out is you choose 1 point and figure out what it's doing. So you start with A right here, and we're trying to get to A prime. In order to do that, what do I need to do, Alex?
You have to go up 5 and right 2.
You would have to go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and right 1, 2. So your translation is up 5, right 2. Literally. Or you could have written 5 up, 2 right. Or you could have gone 2 right first and then up 5. It doesn't matter the order there. Easy, right? Once you know what to do. Okay, last but not least is obviously the hardest one. I always save the most difficult for last. Number 6. Find the coordinates 2, 4, 5, 5, -1, -2 under a translation of 2 units up and 3 units left. Okay, I put a graph underneath there to show you, okay? However, we can figure it out without the graph, okay? So one thing I want to talk about is the first coordinate on all of these. On a graph, the first coordinate tells you what? Does it tell you to go left or right or up and down? It always tells you left and right, okay? So in here, it's telling us we are gonna move that first coordinate 3 units left, okay? So if you're gonna move it left, is that gonna subtract or add? Subtract. Left is gonna be subtraction here, okay? So without using the actual grid itself, A prime, I would subtract, left meaning subtract, 3 from 2. So 2 minus 3 gives me what? Go ahead. -1. So I know A prime is going to have -1 as my first coordinate. Now let's do B prime. What am I going to do with my 5 then? Subtract 3 still, again. 5 minus 3 is what? It's 2. Okay? And then C prime, -1. This is the challenging one without a calculator, right? -1 minus 3 is what? -4. Okay? So if you think about the number line, right? If you have -1, like here's 0, -1 minus 3 more is going to give you -4. Okay, so there's our first coordinate. Now, our second coordinate tells us up and down, right? So if I do this, 2 units up for my second coordinate, is 2 units up going to be adding or subtracting? Adding. So I'm going to add 2 to all of my second coordinates. Okay? So for A prime then, I have to add 2 to the 4. So it's going to be -1 comma what? 6. That's right. Good job. For B prime, it's going to be 7. I add 2 to the 5. And then finally for C, 0. That's right. -2 plus 2 is 0. And then, since it only says to find the coordinates, it does not say to graph, you actually don't have to make the graph. That's the answer. Okay? I put the graph on there in case I needed to show you, but I feel like in this class I can tell you, I can show you the rule, and we can figure it out. Okay, here's what I want to do. I'm going to hand you our homework today, which will be titled Translations 1 Worksheet. And